Welcome to the road to greatness. Get ready to be inspired and empowered to take your career to the next level. Let's talk about it. Before we get into the next example of greatness, I want to invite you to join this pro tip partner community, which is designed to help ambitious, ever-evolving professionals like yourself find a new pro tip, habit, or mindset that helps take your performance to the next level. So here's what I'd love for you to do. First, click subscribe or follow, and then share this episode with anyone who you think needs a little boost. And you can keep the conversation going by following us on social media at Karlyn, Karlyn, RTG podcast. I'd love to hear your comments, questions, and if you try anything from my guests, let me know. Welcome back to the Road to Greatness. I'm your host, Karlyn Kieffer, and today we're wrapping up what has been an incredible first season. I can't believe it's already time to close out this chapter, but don't worry. Season 2 kicks off in October, and we'll have some amazing things planned for you, so stay tuned for those. This season, we've explored the paths to greatness with so many truly inspiring guests from all walks of life. And if there's one thing that stands out from all of our conversations, it's that success isn't just about knowing the fundamentals or how hard you work. There's actually a piece of mental agility that's there. And that means your ability to pivot, adapt, and stay open to the unknown or ambiguous situations. Today, we're going to revisit some of those powerful moments where our guests shared how mental agility played a crucial role in their journey. We'll also let you listen in on one of our improv exercises with a group of volunteers, something that's not only fun, but also an essential exercise in developing that mental agility that we keep talking about. So buckle up for this final ride of the season, and let's reflect on what we've learned so far. You may recall we kicked off with Keisha Zoller, improv artist, actress, and corporate trainer. She emphasized that mental agility and the ability to improvise allows individuals to react, adapt, and discover novel situations in the moment.
Improv a lot of times was about the freedom to play and think bigger and move past limitations. And how I like to translate that into life is being able to adapt, react to real problems and not sit in the, well, I don't have, I can't do, and the possibility of what you can do. And for a lot of people, that's scary because it means going into the unknown. But for me, it's like, ooh, that's opportunity, that's growth.
Nathan Hunter highlights how mental agility allows for lateral thinking, sparking innovative business ideas and explosive success that you just can't plan for.
I just do things without knowing why I do them, and I just leave the space for that to happen. If you see a 2 or a 3-year-old kid, and they go around and they just pick up a toy car from the floor and just throw it against the wall, there's no reason why they did it. They just did it, and they're just gonna now learn from what's happening there, and then they're gonna play around, and it's this pure pursuit of creativity that can then land them to really cool learning experiences. And that's what I do. And I tend to do this a lot in procrastination. So I have deadlines. For example, I had a deadline a few months ago. I had to submit a manuscript, and I kept pushing it. I kept pushing it. I was like, okay, I know this deadline's coming up. I know this deadline's coming up. I've written, I know, 30 plus chapters. I need to write another 10, 15, and I know I don't have enough time to write it. So instead, I sit down, I tell myself I'm going to write my book, and I open up HeyGen, which is an AI avatar platform where you can create AI videos of yourself that talk on behalf of you and stuff. And I thought, you know what? Let's play with this. And I played with it, and my honest take was the outputs weren't too great. I tried to look for all the best demos of what people were doing with this platform, and I was kind of disappointed. So I thought, hey, great procrastination opportunity. Let's just play with this. And then for the next 2 to 3 days, I just kept playing and playing and playing and playing until I ended up building videos that the CEO of HeyGen couldn't believe that I used their platform to build, because the level of quality of what we're able to now produce is way beyond what even their team have been doing, because of the random stuff we discovered by playing with no agenda.
And then, of course, famed author, and I would argue the true master of the thriller, Lee Child, shared his mind-blowing philosophy for writing without a plan.
Who did it? What is happening? Whatever the question is, it can be very basic. The reader sticks around and wants the answer. And the way I do it is that I don't know the answer either. I make the book up as I go along.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, I never plan it out. I never have a really solid idea of what's going to happen. There have been many, many, many books where I just start out writing and then I figure it out as I go along, and somebody that I thought was a good guy turns out to be a bad guy or whatever. And so I am feeling it just as much as I hope the reader is going to feel it.
And business matchmaker Jeff Harrison really drove all of these points home with this tennis analogy.
I'll steal another one of Billie Jean's lines, champions adjust. And, if you're a champion on any level, you're always adjusting, right? If you're in a tennis match and, or you thought their backhand was weak and you start pounding the backhand, but they're passing on every shot, you're like, all right, I got to adjust a little bit too. My favorite thing about relationships is that I've built a lot of them over the years, that if I see something from my primary business is not going in the right direction and it's not going to go the right direction, I love being able to pivot and say, you know what, you might be better off calling my friend Joe and Sally Smith at this organization. I think this might fit your philanthropic needs a little better.
And as we look at the power of asking good questions, Rainmaker and star salesperson Sid Nazareth emphasize the importance of asking the right questions, both in sales and in understanding client needs, as the way to ensure he is able to meet the client wherever they are.
So when you talk about agility, I think one is, yes, responding to questions and thinking through what the person asking you is trying to understand. But the other thing is also understanding what are the first principles in any interaction with people. And it's not, do you have the perfect message? Do you have the perfect line memorized? Do you have the perfect pitch? It's basically just understanding that at the end of the day, it's two people speaking, and the other person wants to be seen and heard before any sort of information or any pitch that you give them. I'm so passionate about teaching others, and that when you see the light in someone's eyes light up, and they've got something from an interaction and they go off and they try something new, it's an amazing feeling for me. So I love working with folks who are new to the organization, who are learning. And I think a lot of times we're taught to show up and throw up, to go memorize a bunch of lines or messaging and just show up. And a lot of times it's really important to take a step back and say, why are we doing what we're doing? Why does the company exist? Why are we selling this product? What types of problems are we solving? What types of people are we working with? What are their goals and desires and their careers? And so I really enjoy working, in this case, with folks who are new to the organization, helping onboard them. And you refer to the analogy I used, I used the analogy of a doctor. And this is true for any industry, not just software. When you walk into a doctor's office, the doctor doesn't say, I'm so glad you're here. I've got these 3 new pills that I just got last week. Which one would you like? They diagnose the problem. And a good doctor will say, it looks like you have a problem with your heart. I'm actually a bone specialist, but let me refer you to someone else. And a lot of times in sales, we've got a lot of stuff in our head through no fault of ours. There's so much to learn that we're so focused on giving folks the perfect pitch that you may not realize that that person has a different sort of problem to solve.
And again, last week, Lee really drove home the importance of leveraging good questions to appeal to the human desire for answers, and how asking questions can keep your audience engaged, whether in writing or in real life situations.
That is what I've noticed, is that for some reason, human beings are hardwired to want an answer. If you ask them a question or imply a question, they want the answer, even if they know the answer, because they want the gratification of knowing they're right.
Absolutely.
And that is something that has powered everything that I do, really. And it still endures in sports a lot, where you would ask a question at the beginning of a commercial break, and then you would answer it at the start of the next segment. And people therefore would not change the channel because they were, however stupid the question was, people are desperate to know. And so that is really what powers a book.
And our third bucket, of course, is building relationships with natural curiosity. Benny Wiley rebuilt relationships by listening deeply and understanding stakeholders' perspectives, demonstrating how curiosity strengthens connections.
And I ended up being the person that was selected to be the new CEO of the partnership. What I discovered after I assumed the role was that the organization was bankrupt. And even the board didn't realize how bankrupt it was.
Wow.
It was bankrupt financially, but it was also bankrupt in terms of credibility because some promises had been made that hadn't been kept. And it also wasn't working internally. It was still two organizations within this one title, but they didn't have a shared mission or strategy. I started meeting with key stakeholders in the city. I must have met with like 70 different people within those first few months. Once I had greater clarity around what different stakeholders thought were important, then I created a committee that was comprised of different leaders of members of the board, but from the two representing both of the pre-existing organization, for the predecessor organizations. And then we developed what the mission of the partnership may be in this particular point in time. From the very beginning, relationships were important. They were important from trying to rebuild credibility by working and meeting with all of these 70 stakeholders in terms of how you brought together this disparate board so that they started having a shared vision, but also creating relationships with the community, the younger community that you were trying to attract and develop in the city.
CEO Ed Foster Simeon discussed how his ability to communicate effectively and convey ideas through storytelling is underpinned by the skill of asking and addressing the right questions and finding common ground, common interest, and shared value.
The ability to convey ideas has so much currency in any industry because often the smartest people in the room can't convey an idea. They know all the technical details. They know how the thing works. They can make out the engineering specs, but they can't convey to another person what it is that this thing does and why it's important and why they should care about it. And so the ability to convey ideas is a universal skill set that will take you anywhere, no matter what business you are in. In fact, if you look at most CEOs, they're good communicators. They are the people who can take all the business and convey it in a way that stakeholders and others can understand what it is that the company's trying to do, right? Where it's trying to go, and then get behind that idea. If I'm trying to sell you something, then that's a transactional kind of conversation, and I have not had success with that. What I share is what is it that we're trying to do? How does it align with the values or the interests of the other organization? And can we see the shared benefit of participating in this, right? Because it should be a shared benefit. Nonprofit is the funny thing about nonprofit, which I never really thought about is before I came over to this side, is that in most businesses, you sell something, you give someone a product, they pay for it, and they receive the product, and they take it and you do whatever they will with it. In a nonprofit, the payer is not receiving anything. They're providing something for somebody else, right? For someone else to receive, which is a whole different kind of engagement. So if you can't connect that to someone's personal interests or their business objectives, like, why does that matter to me? Why would I do that?
And let's not forget the First Lady of Boxing, Jackie Callan's approach to building relationships by being inquisitive and fearless. which helped her pivot into a successful career in the male-dominated space of boxing management and promotions.
I look at every opportunity as an adventure. I'm going to meet someone tonight, or I'm going to get an opportunity to do something different. And I approach everything with excitement. And again, that fearlessness. What is the worst that could happen in any situation? That you might fail? You might ask somebody for something and they'll say no.
No, right?
What? Then you just keep moving forward and ask the next person.
Yeah.
A no isn't the end of the world. And a failure isn't the end of the world. There's a lesson. There's a
Yeah.
lesson in everything if you look for it.
USTA executive Nicole Kankum reflects on her career pivots and how to stay open and curious about new opportunities to help her navigate from a career in music to sports marketing and well beyond.
I try to even just think about like different media I'm consuming, like not just reading or watching or listening things that are solely focused on that particular industry, right? Like obviously, like for instance, right, I have to read a lot on sports and in the sports trades, but you know, thinking broadly about even who the competitive landscape, what the competitive landscape is. So, you know, Coachella and like other South by Southwest events and like other, you know, now and I think now more than ever, right? Like sports is even at this center, this intersection of culture that includes not just sports, not just music, entertainment. Like there's so many different layers that are all kind of involved. And so consuming media that's varied and wide reaching, I think helps.
One of our guests, world-renowned negotiator Josh Weiss, mentioned an activity I use with my clients at ProTip Partners to work on both mental agility, engaged listening, and team building called One Word.
So you can know about 80% of what's going to happen, but then you really need to learn the skill and the mindset of adaptability and having a flexible way of approaching things. Like when I plan, I sort of take a contingency planning approach. So I think about it and I say, well, I know what my goal is. Now, what are the different ways I can get there? And I try to sketch out for myself maybe 3 or 4 different paths so that if one route is blocked, it's a little bit like playing chess, right? If one route is blocked, then you try a different route. And I think if you don't plan that way, then again, you get back into what I would call the freak out factor for a lot of people, where they get really nervous because they don't know what to do. Their plan just went up in flames because the other side didn't do what you imagined they might. In fact, one of my colleagues at Harvard, a guy named Mike Wheeler, wrote a book called The Art of Negotiation. And in the book, he makes the case that if you want to be an effective negotiator, you need to learn the skills of improv. And that you can. There's lots of classes and things like that. And in fact, I have another friend, Izzy Gazelle, who's an improv guy who, you know, we talked through this exercise that he uses that I really like about creating a story. It's called One Word. And so you start by you and I would create a story by just, you would say a word, I would say a word, you would say a word, I would say a word. And you keep going back and forth. And what you notice is that you're making assumptions about what the other person's going to say and things along those lines. So you learn to clear your mind and just go with the story.
I can't take you inside a client training, but I did ask a group of volunteers to play. And so you can now take a listen to the third round. This is the third time we've gone through the storytelling exercise, led by my co-facilitator and previous guest, Keisha Zoller. Let's do a story about a dream vacation.
A dream vacation, brief story about a dream vacation. Luke, kick us off.
I
once
really
wanted
to
fly
away
to
a
paradise
place.
Period. New sentence.
Area.
choosing
To
leave.
Oh, waiting on Shawnee.
Oh, sorry.
I have to choose leave now.
Right.
Choosing to leave.
Behind.
oh My.
All right. I'm going to pause us just for a second. Everyone, deep breath in and out. And I know we're over Zoom. Let's just try to stay present and connect with each other. The answers with each other, not up and to the right or to the left, but usually to the right.
That's fair. So I will take us back once. Oh, I once really wanted to fly away to a paradise place, choosing to leave behind my. And I think we're back at Luke, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Luggage.
Period.
Furthermore,
No.
pants.
Were.
Necessary.
Period.
No, we had to let that keep going to. Okay.
I was gonna say I needed to go where we were going without pants.
I mean, I would say this. Can we hear the story?
I once really wanted to fly away to a paradise place, choosing to leave behind my luggage. Furthermore, no pants were necessary.
What are some surprising things that came up in that one? This was a very succinct story that, you know, we wanted to go on vacation. The middle part was we didn't want to bring a suitcase and we didn't need pants. What were some things that we found interesting or surprising?
I think when it's time for your word, you think of things that you have to think in multiple words, even though you say one. And then everybody else chooses completely different things than what you had already planned, right? So it's completely unexpected and never goes the way you had envisioned it.
Yeah, it's almost like you try to set up the other people after. You don't want to like lead to like a dead end, but set them up for some sort of direction, right?
I think you're also trying to think about like what the person before you, like what their next thought was and try to take it there, whether you're right or not.
Well, and I always felt like I was waiting for someone to take the stress off and like, you know, take it somewhere. And when Drew threw in the furthermore, I was like,
I just for a half second want to, what was that?
I thought we were finished with that thought. When you say period, I was like, okay, phew. And then it was like, furthermore. So it was continuing with, I had to, you know, get my brain back into that moment of where's my luggage and where am I going?
Great. So just when we thought, oh, I can check out, I'm done. You know, we're done with that. You're like, oh, but wait.
And the pressure's on somebody else. And it's like, oh no, it's not. Now it's back on me.
To me, it's reinforcing like, oh wow, like the more times we expose ourselves to scenarios like this, like the more we practice and the more we can kind of have an idea or train ourselves to anticipate the unexpected and like prepare for that. Because I knew like, okay, well, I know this how this is gonna go. And so I know that there's certain words and certain connectors and certain verbs and certain pieces that are needed in order to complete the story. And so I know that. I don't know if anybody else knows that. So I'm going to try to play my part to like interject these pieces that will maybe lead others to get there as well.
I noticed a couple of things. One, it was clear that everyone was more present the second time and really tuning in a little bit more for the simple fact that the tenses of the sentence stayed the same. In the previous one, there was some future tense, there was some past tense, there was some present tense of words being used. But in this particular one, everyone came out in the same past tense. It just shows that, you know, when you're thinking about the communication element of it, how tuned in you need to be. And so thinking, even relating it to if you're doing a team presentation, if you're doing a joint meeting, if you're doing something like that, everybody should sound like they're coming from the same perspective and the same page when they're on the same side of the table. And so that being present really allows, how are they framing? How are they framing? Okay, this is how I can then frame at the same time. So kudos to everybody for dialing in a little tighter this time.
And I think one of the things that really resonates, and the word that keeps coming up for me, is vulnerability, because I think that that's like we're all willing to be a little vulnerable and, you know, make some mistakes. And personally think it also helps on the management side of things. Like you were saying, Karlyn, like how do we, you know, how does this play itself forward in the business and what it means to be a good manager? And there's just something I don't know what it is lately, but it's just like you kind of have to embrace that vulnerability that you have, and not kind of be ashamed of it in a way, like just let it be.
And it's a good reminder, by working together, by having the same goal, there's more than one way to get it done, and ask for help, right? Ask for clarification, like which of these 10 things would you like to prioritize, and just be okay with kind of unknowns, but knowing that together we'll do the best we can.
Go in. I get it's kind of like the don't go in with your elevator pitch and ready to go. It's go in with the idea that you're having a conversation. So you're going to hear things you're not prepared to hear, and just understand that there's another person on the other side of that table or that phone or that screen, and that it is going to be a conversation. Don't go in as if, you know, I'm in sales, I'm going to tell you how great everything is. It's no, let's actually talk about it and have a dialogue.
Yeah, I think the one thing is just getting, like Alyssa put out there, and Keisha, you keep saying, being comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's practices like this are disarming for people who've never thought that this could be a thing in their professional life, where you're like, I'm taught in school, things are a certain way, I get tested a certain way. I get out to maybe college and I, again, tested a certain way, think a certain way. And then you realize you get out into the real world and it's not really like that. So getting used to that uncertainty and being willing to accept it is probably the biggest thing, especially for people who are just getting into new roles.
As you can hear, it's a bit of a mental workout and it's a little awkward, and you may not immediately connect the one-word activity to what you do in business, but we work on that in the processing component of the activity. But it's a lot of fun and a great way to stretch those mental muscles that we've been talking about all season. And this is just one example of how improvisation can be used to boost your mental agility, something that's so vital today in the fast-paced marketplace that we're all trying to work in. So before we close out this episode and this season, I want to take a moment to reach out and thank each and every one of you for joining me on this journey. And of course, all of our guests of season 1. The road to greatness has been a labor of love, and your engagement, feedback, and support have meant the absolute world to me, again, because it's the first season. And as we've learned from our guests, the path to greatness is never a straight line. I can attest to that. It's full of twists and turns, and sometimes, even a lot of times, you need to pivot, adapt, and embrace the unknown. But that's what makes this journey so rewarding. Season 2 kicks off in October, as I mentioned, and I can't wait to share more incredible stories and insights with you. Guests include one of the winningest college basketball coaches in history with tips on recruiting top talent, management, and leadership. So all of you people leaders out there, I hope you'll tune back in. We also have a sales lead generating guru to stretch you beyond your comfort zone so you can slay in Q4 and for every quarter beyond. Until then, I challenge you to reflect on your own journey to greatness. Where can you improve your mental agility? How can you push yourself to pivot when needed? Remember, you don't have to do it alone. Whether it's through your own practice, joining one of our open classes, or bringing in some expert help like we offer at Pro Tip Partners, there are plenty of ways to keep growing and moving forward. Visit protippartners.com for more information and upcoming classes. You can also follow Pro Tip Partners on social media. And if you haven't already followed or subscribed to this podcast, first, why haven't you? Just kidding. But I hope you will. But be sure to do so you can catch more highlights from the season and be the first to tune in to season 2. Thank you again for being a part of this journey. Stay inspired, stay agile, and I'll see you all in October. Did you hear something you liked? Tell me about it at Karlyn RTG Podcast on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. Thanks for joining.